This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jabrukovsky, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. If you're new to the show, thank you for coming here. If you're with us for a while, we thank you. We love you. I mean, we've done over 200 episodes right now, and I just feel so, honored to be able to share so many amazing human beings' stories. And hopefully, if you're listening and watching this right now, you're on a course to a better life. If you're struggling right now, that's fine. We all have to go through that. If you're on the top of the world, that's awesome as well. Uh, just keep fighting for your dreams. I have a big fat mission. I want to help at least 10 million people in 10 years to go after their dreams. It what makes me tick. It makes me wake up early in the morning. I told Michael here, our guest, that I woke up early, ran. It was so dark this morning that I barely couldn't see. I had to use the flashlight on my phone in order to see what was in front of me. But I just love the silence and to explore the world when the world is sleeping. It feels like I have an edge off the world. And here we are. It's morning for me here, and I get to do this. So thanks again, guys. If you like what we do, if you enjoy the show, please share it, give us some love. We do this absolutely free. The only thing we want is, first of all, that you take your life seriously and go after your dreams, and second, that you help us out and help me building this tribe of the I Love Success nation of people that want to succeed and create a better life. With that being said, let me introduce this week's guest. And I mean, I love what it's written on your website. As my wife Suzanne will tell you, I don't know much about anything else, but I know everything there is to know about books. I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up. You also say books are magic, and a good book with your name on the cover will transform you. It changed my life, certainly. And books changed everything. And by reading, my life has been so much better. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, he has written so many books. I don't know where to start. He's published books for, the biggest publishers in the US and the world, and also helped written, incredible books for game changers of the world. So without further ado, let's welcome Michael Levin.
Peter, thank you for having me. It's a privilege. And I'm laughing because no one's ever quoted that line off the website before about my wife saying that he doesn't know anything other than books. But it's true. If something breaks in the house, I say, all I have is two tools in my toolbox, a checkbook and a phone. Call the man.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. So, but when we
But
talk about books a little bit. Anyway, thank you
yeah,
for
I
having
mean, what do they say? Don't be a jack of all trades, right? That's a master of none. So let's go back, Michael. Where did your fascination and love for books and the written word start?
It started when I was a really little kid, and my parents read to me, and I can still hear my father's voice reading me Ask Mr. Bear and Winnie the Pooh, which were my favorite books when I was tiny. And I just fell in love with the magic of a book, the idea that you could capture a story in pages and it's printed out and people are reading it all over the world. And I just thought, wow, isn't that amazing? And when I was in, I guess about seventh or eighth grade, they took us into the library and they showed us a film strip. And I don't even know how to explain what a film strip is to anybody under 40. It's sort of like a series of snapshots of, you could today you'd call it a deck, but it showed an author poring over his galleys, meaning the pages that were going to be, printed up in book form. And I saw that and I said, that's what I want. So I knew from the time I was in second or third grade that this was the only thing I wanted to do with my life, was to be I'm a total book nerd, and that's what I am.
Wow. And When was the first time you wrote something that you were proud of?
Um, when I was about 13 or so, I started writing letters to the editor of Time Magazine and Newsweek and the New York Times, and they started to get published. And I would see, they say that there's nothing as hypnotic or as addictive as seeing your name in print. But then I'd look at the sentences that I'd written and I'd just say, those are good sentences. So, I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd. I have kids who are really cool. I'm not cool. They are. So, I know the difference and I have no illusions, but I just like the rhythm of the things that I wrote, and I like the music of what I was writing, and the comedy and the terseness. So I just felt as though I can do this, you know.
And where did your influence come from? Is that something that comes natural to you, or did you have someone teaching you this, or is it a form of reading? Like, where does that come from? That, sometimes we see an athlete doing something spectacular, and we always wonder, is that talent? Is that training? Is that inspiration from dancing, or completely different? And the mind of this person just works in a beautiful way, and he or she have this sense of putting this together into a beautiful thing. Can you just share how's that process been for you?
Sure. And I've worked with a lot of top athletes, as you mentioned, some people in the Baseball Hall of Fame, people who've won the Super Bowl, people who've won the NBA Finals, and people who are highly successful in all fields. So, and I've talked with them about this, and I think it's a combination. I think it's all of the above. First, I had the very good fortune of having parents who were literate, who loved books, as I said, read to us. And I think there's nothing a person can do more important. I mean, part of loving a small child that you have is to read to that child, and every night. And that's how they go to bed. And then they fall in love with books and they fall in love with reading, especially in today's world where everything is visual, everything is digital, but to actually hold a physical book in your hand. So I had that from my parents. And then I definitely have a gift from God to write. And so the thing is that lots of people have gifts, but the thing is that, do we develop them? And I developed a deep, deep fascination with writing, and with other people's writing from a very early age. I was in the library all the time as a kid, taking books out, reading books, trying to understand why things were structured the way they were structured. How was a story put together? How was a newspaper column put together? I would buy, when I was 13 or 14 or so, I bicycled to the store to buy the early edition of the newspaper, and then I bicycled back there a couple of hours later to buy the late edition. And I laid them out side by side to understand what's the difference, how are the stories updated, what moved around. Uh, and then when I started to ask myself, what are the concerns that authors are writing about? How difficult a challenge are they posing themselves for themselves? What kind of story are they trying to tell? So a lot of it is teaching yourself. And then I had phenomenal, phenomenal teachers in high school and especially in college who taught me how to read really thoughtfully and carefully, and to understand what is the author really trying to do. And not just from the perspective of the reader, how am I enjoying this? What do I think is going on? But what were the author's goals? What was the author trying to accomplish? And then you sort of put yourself into the mind of the author. And I remember one night walking around my college library and looking at there were 500,000 books in the stacks, and thinking to myself, all these 500,000 authors cannot be smarter than I am. They cannot all be better writers than I am. I have to be at least in the bottom, quartile or whatever. And I have to be able to do this. And I just started to write, and I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to, I didn't have the confidence in myself, but I had the ability, and the confidence came over time. So.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying. You didn't have the confidence, but you had the ability, and you put in the work. And when does the work transpires into confidence? Is that when you get published or get some type of recognition, or like, when does that transpire? Because I've thought about that a lot as an athlete. Didn't have confidence, but you get some good wins, and even if I didn't win the tournament, I felt like, wow, I could really fight against this great fighter, and that gave me confidence. How does it work in the writing environment or for you?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. I had a client, very successful businessman, and he said confidence is a long-term proposition. It doesn't come from one success. He said you can have one success, like somebody who starts a .com and it's very successful, and they do that in their 20s and they sell it for a lot of money, and that's great. But the thing is that you can also be very afraid as a result of that success. How am I going to repeat it? Am I going to be able to do that again and again? So he said confidence is a long-term proposition. It takes a while to develop. And part of it is internal. Part of it is just simply, as I said earlier, looking at the sentences that I wrote and knowing that they were good sentences. There's the sentence of the building block of everything in writing. If you can write a good sentence, everything else is just mastering that form, whether it's a newspaper article or a book. I hope this is interesting to people. It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But then, then there are external things. As you said, you win races. I do marathons, but I do them very slowly. I've never, the only time I was in the top 5 in a half marathon was when there were only 3 people in my age group. And I got a medal for 5th place in my age group or something, which I'm very proud of. But I mean, there are moments when you see your writing published in Time Magazine, in Newsweek, and you're 14, 15, 16 years old, and you see that you've written a long letter to the editor of the sports section of the New York Times, and they run it does something to you. And then when I was in college, there was a moment when one of the student groups, I worked for the newspaper, I was on the student newspaper. One of the student groups took over the newspaper, and they weren't happy with the way they were being covered. So they had to sit in, and they locked all the editors in a room, and we couldn't, we were able to get out the window. They didn't think of that. And that's how we were able to get the paper out. But there were about 17 of us, and this is a very good school, very good college, Amherst College in Massachusetts. And all of the kids who were working on the newspaper they were all good writers. They were all smart kids. But the thing is that as we started to talk about how are we going to write a story about being taken over by this group, everybody just sort of assumed that I would write the story. And I just started taking notes. Nobody assigned it to me, but it was just sort of everybody knew that I would do it. And that was a turning point for me, because I thought, if all these other students, my classmates and people who are older than I am, junior seniors, if they have that kind of confidence in me, I must be good. So there are things like that. It's the external validation. You sell your first book, you sell your second book, little by little you say, maybe this is going to work out. So, and here I am, and I'm very fortunate. It has, and it continues to. So
Yeah. And can you just talk about selling your first book? And was that the first book you wrote, or how did that happen, and how did that feel?
oh my gosh, the first book I sold, I became very interested in religion when I was in college, and I increased my religious practice. And my parents and my family and my friends, everybody thought that I joined a cult, that I'd flipped out. I didn't think I was crazy, but they all did.
Yeah.
And I had noticed that one of my college professors had written a book when he was in his early 20s. Most of the time, you think of authors as being much older. So I thought, well, if he did that, I can do it. So I wrote a manuscript about my religious conversion experience. I sent it to 30 publishers. I found 30 religious publishers in a reference source, and I sent the first 2 chapters in an outline and an overview and a cover letter to 30 publishers. 28 rejected it instantaneously. One called and expressed a little interest, and then the 30th of them, which was an afterthought, I don't even know why I put it on the list. They wrote back and said, we're very interested. This is pretty good. So their offices were in Hoboken. I was in law school in New York City. So I took the subway and then the PATH tube, and I walked from the PATH station in Hoboken to their office and went in. And the editor said, yeah, I was a little concerned about the editing and the ending. And he's flipping through it. And he says, yeah, okay, let's do this. Come on. And then he took me into the publisher's office and said, Bernie, I want to buy this book. And Bernie's like, okay, we'll give you $500. And I was like, they're going to give me money for this book. He said, all right, I'll give you $1,000, but that's the most we're going to give you. I said, I'll take it. Okay. And I walked out of there, we shook hands. It's a deal. I walked out of there literally yelling as I walked down the streets of Hoboken back to the, so, and then it was, I felt like I'd been hit by lightning. And then I wrote my first novel. It's called The Socratic Method. I knew somebody at Simon and Schuster. I sent it to him. He liked it. He turned it over to an editor. It took 8 months, but he bought it. And oh my, he called on a Friday. He said, "We're going to let you know next Thursday if we're buying the book or not." Like, why did you have to tell me that? It's 6 days of agony. The sixth day. This is before there's even call waiting on phones. People get a busy signal, so people are always calling. Did he call you? No, he didn't call. Goodbye. Did he call you? No, he didn't call. Goodbye. And then finally, then the day that I'm waiting for him, that same day, I go out to check the mail for a second, and there's a postcard from an agent rejecting the book. I'd been told, send the book out to these 5 agents in case Simon and Schuster says no. So the very day I got the postcard from the last agent saying we're not interested, the other 4 had already rejected it. And then he called, and he didn't have that Undertaker's tone in his voice when people have bad news. And I'm like, he doesn't sound like he has bad news.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he said, "We like your book. We think we can hit the yuppie market pretty hard with it, and we want to buy it. And we'll give you $7,500 for it." And I said, "Well, how about 12.5?" And he laughed. He said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." I said, "Right." So I'm not much of a negotiator, but I mean, and then I started calling everybody back, and I just started screaming into the phone, "Yes!" And I'd hang up the phone and call the next person, "Yes!" Call my mother, and so on. So, I mean, when you're trying to do something and you get that kind of external validation,
Yeah.
it's very sweet. It's very
It's
sweet.
amazing. I remember when I got my first book deal, and I sent it to like 30 or 40 publishers as well. And like it feels amazing. And I want to also talk about the other side of being a creator, being an artist, because uh, how do you survive during the time you're building yourself? And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of creators. They have a lot of pushback from family and friends, like, hey, when you got to get a real job? And there's always that internal struggle. When am I going to quit, and when am I going to continue? And some people like yourself find the courage to keep going, because that's the only thing you want, the know. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I have a law degree from Columbia Law School. It's
Yeah.
one of the top law schools in the country.
Wow.
Didn't want to practice law. I was in and out of 2 law firms, each in about 5 months, because they could tell I
how,
didn't.
how did you finish law school if you didn't want to do it? Like, how did you kept the motivation to kind of do that?
I have a very high tolerance for pain, but the other thing is that I knew that I wanted to write, and I couldn't figure out how to make a living writing. It sold, I had opinion pieces in the New York Times and this and that, but I just figured I don't know how writers make money.
Yeah.
So I figured lawyers write, judges write, so I'll be able to use my skill in service of a career, and I can pay for my life. But I didn't want to do it. They didn't want me. I was all but fired from the first job. I was fired from the second. And so I just scrambled financially for the next few years. I sold 3 novels to Simon and Schuster, but the total amount that I got for them was about $65,000. And that's not a lot of. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but I
Yeah.
mean, it was like the late '80s, so um, it doesn't exactly pay for a very lifestyle. So in 1992, I met a man who has been my mentor to this day, and he's like a father figure to
Can
me.
you say
And
that one more time?
his
I
name is
think we
Bob.
broke
I'm not
up.
going to give you his last name because
Uh,
he.
Michael, I sorry,
Oh
can you
yeah,
say that one more
I'm
time?
sorry.
I think we broke up a little bit. So you were saying that yeah, you got 65,000. It's hard to get like a good make a good living from
It's
that. And
not a
then
lot of. It's, right. And then I met a man who in 90, forgive me, in 94, I met a man who has been my mentor to this day.
yeah,
And he sat me down in a Dunkin' Donuts and he said, I've worked with a lot of you creative people. He said, you cannot do your best work if you cannot put food on the table or pay for your rent. He said, I'm going to show, he was a very successful businessman. He said, I'm going to show you how to start a business that's going to pay for your life. And he said, you're going to offer writing classes. You're going to find a space and you're going to offer private writing classes because this is going to keep you in your field. We're going to figure out how much money you need to live on. That's going to be, and we're going to divide that amount, that monthly amount by 80 because you're going to work 20 hours a week on these classes, marketing them, preparing, teaching, marking up the homework, and so on. So these are classes for adults. And we figured out what my monthly budget was. It was probably around, I don't know, 4,000 a month, 3,500 a month. So the question is, how do I make $3,500 a month in 20 hours a week? So we determined how many places in each class I'd have to sell, how many classes, how much to charge, so that my income would match, and what my expenses would be. I had to buy chairs. I had to pay rent to somebody. I started in a yoga. I went to my yoga teacher. I said, can I rent out your space for teaching classes? He said, sure. So it was all, it wasn't a favor, it was business. And I filled up those classes and then more classes and more classes. So this taught me a very important lesson, which is that you should never, if you're trying to do creative work, you should never force the creative work to pay for your life. Have something that pays for your life so that you can do this other creative work. And that business of teaching writing classes, people started to say to me over time, can you consult with me? So I had to work out an hourly rate, and I didn't know how to do that. And I'd go back to Bob, how do I do this? I'm raising my rate. I'd be crying. Am I worth it? Who's going to pay me this? And then finally, people started saying, just write it for me. And as a result, I developed a ghostwriting practice, which turned into a ghostwriting business, which I ultimately sold and started a new one 6 months later. So the short of it is that from that 20 hours a week, trying to make $3,500 a month so I could pay for my life, it turned into a business. We were doing more than 100 books a year. I was employing about 35 people and 40 people. It was a huge thing. So, but the main thing is that at the beginning, I did not force the my creative work to pay for my life. And a lot of creative people do that. And so if it takes the strain off you if you can create a source of money for yourself, and then you feel good about yourself that you're bringing in money instead of being broke or being dependent on other people. So that's my start a business in your field, make money, and then you can have time to do your own creative work.
I love that. A question though, when you built this successful business, did you have time to be creative?
Less and less. I was turning from the creative person into the suit, and it didn't fit me well because I'm a successful businessman. I've learned how to run a business, but I'm not a real businessman. I don't live to take companies private or public or anything like that. And it got to the point where I was starting to have health issues from the stress of it. And once that started happening, the people who knew me really well said, sell the business. I had an opportunity to sell. They all said, sell it. All my business friends who didn't really think about, like my hardcore business friends, they're like, keep the business for 3-5 more years. You'll be able to sell it for $10 million. And I read a book about selling businesses, and it said that sometimes owners can stay too long at the fair. Like they have the opportunity to sell it for X, but now they want to sell it for 3X or for 5X. And they wait too long, and then the economy changes. Well, what if I didn't sell the business and then COVID strikes, and now I'm running a business and I have to have, and I'm making a payroll with 35 people during COVID. I don't want that. I don't want to be that guy. So nobody sees pandemics, but nobody sees any crises coming. So I was very fortunate to just get out from under it when I did. My business friends were very upset with me, the people who knew me, and I was able, I said, I've got starting to have these health issues. They're like, you're done. It's over. Get out. And I did, and I never looked back. So
Yeah, I think this is a struggle that a lot of, creators have, because a lot of creators are also very good at other things, so they learn to be good at other things to survive. But then just like in your situation, it almost goes too well and it's hard to say no. What are the lessons that you learned from that you can tell others that are in the same situation? They have this big burning desire in them to create, and they are creating a lifestyle so that they can create, but their other job, they're good at that too, so it's starting to take more and more time from their actual main focus, and they're losing their main focus, and time just flies by. Look, it's already October, right? We've been inside for almost a year, and hopefully people that are listening have done something with their life. But it's also very easy to be the best Netflix watcher in the world right now, right? So can we just
yeah.
talk about that, because I think that's so important.
Well, you touched on a word a moment ago. You asked several really important questions there. And the first is, how do you not, I mean, I felt as though when I was running that company that I called it the day job that ate Chicago. You know, it just kept growing. And um, you know, you want to find great people and let them run it as much as possible. And then you're not that person. But from, I mean, the real issue is, you know, creating the word that you use, lifestyle. That's the answer. I was just on the phone with a person who does book launches, because my clients, my ghostwriting clients, they don't just want a book, they want to become thought leaders. So I was referred to this person who is just outstanding at launching books and turning people you've never heard of into thought leaders. This is what she does. And I said to her, you know, I can send you a lot of business, I can white label you, and it's going to be great. And she said, I'm very grateful that you're offering this, but the reality is that I'm booked until next April. I don't want any more clients. I have a nice rhythm with my work, and I'm not taking on any clients until next April because it's going to disrupt my lifestyle. So you have to decide, who am I? What matters to me? Where do I want to put my time? You know, I like to go. You know, you worked out this morning. I went to the gym this morning. I like to go to the gym every day. I like to work out. I like to work out hard. And that takes time. I like to take care of myself. I have a family. I like to be with my wife and my 4 children. I have religious obligations that have to be fulfilled. I have community obligations. So the thing is that I'm not really cut out for working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It's just not who I am. I'm productive. I can get a lot done. And if you give me 4 hours, I can do a day's worth of work. I can do 2 days worth of work in 4 or 5 hours. So I'm judicious with my time. I protect my time. And so the advice is, don't take on more than you're comfortable handling. Don't let the money drive you. And you know, rather than take on so many projects, just if you're that much in demand, double your fees, charge more. You know, let other people. That's your leverage. Instead of, I mean, you know, my mentor Jay Abraham says, don't try to build an empire, try to build a fortune. And that's really brilliant advice. You know, an empire with tons of people working in the desks, and it's a lot of HR, it's a lot of overhead, it's a lot of problems, it's a lot of everything, and who needs it? And I like to keep things simple. I have a very small team. I have this business that I started. I think I have about 7 writers. I have 3 people who work with me to run the business, and that's it. It's not 35. It's 10. It's manageable. So yeah, you know. And then as far as not being active during the pandemic, there's no excuse for that. I mean, there's no excuse for wasting 7 or 8 months of your life and sitting and watching Netflix. I don't relate to the person who does that. I don't understand the mentality of the person. You know, we're not here forever. We're not here. You know, a friend of mine had tattooed on his shoulder what his father said, which is, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. So, you know, if somebody sat from March 17th, we're talking in October, for 7 months and watched Netflix and didn't do anything, shame on that person. I don't even know what to, I don't even know what to say other than stop it. Because I don't understand the mentality of somebody who would waste precious, consciousness and precious time on earth to, look, I like to watch sports and I like to waste my time, you know, watching games on television. Okay, fine. But the thing is that I'll watch half an hour of a game. I'm not spending 12 hours a day downloading. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off, but I don't get that. I just don't get the
No,
mentality.
I totally understand. And one thing that I've learned, I used to be very hard as well, but one thing I've learned, there's a lot of limiting beliefs in us human beings. And if you're listening to this right now, and if you feel like you wasted time, it today is a good day to get started and to take that next step on your dream. And I want to talk a little bit about the whole book industry and what have changed since you started. And it feels like we're in a society right now where the attention span is about 3 seconds, and people want to know everything now. There's even services summarizing books in 15 minutes, and uh, like this long format is not for everybody. I think it's about 2% of the population that is actually interested in listening to a 1 hour conversation. And those are the people that I want to tap into, to be honest. But how have you seen the book industry change? And also, do you believe as a writer today, you have to write differently than, let's say, 15, 20 years ago in order to be successful?
Yeah, these are great questions. And first, I apologize. I didn't mean to sound so negative toward the
Yeah.
people who've been sitting there, but get off the couch, people.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I don't even think those people watch your show, because this is too vibrant. So I think you speak to people who are on the path. The publishing industry has changed radically. I mean, the first thing is that the independent publishing has taken off to the point where you can finish a book this afternoon and you can publish it tonight on Kindle Direct with Amazon, and it can be available around the world for sale instantly. And then you can use social media to niche market in ways that were unthinkable in the past. It used to be that the major publishers had a hammerlock on the distribution of books and on the marketing of books. And in recent years, there's an Arab Spring for authors, meaning that the old companies that insisted you do things their way, they're fading. They're not. They've lost their power. They've lost their ability to control. So anyone can publish anything at any time and then market it extremely efficiently through social media, digital marketing, Facebook, Google. So it's an incredible time for writers. And it also means that instead of just writing a book and waiting for somebody else to publicize it, you have to be your own book marketer. You can't just write it. You have to get it out there and monetize it. I teach people how to do that. It's very important because writing the book is only half the battle. The other skill set is marketing and monetizing. But you can do that. You have the option of doing that today. And what was the other question you asked about?
If you have to change your writing in order to
Yes,
tap into people's shorter attention span.
I do a twice weekly newsletter, and it's on just whatever comes to mind, and it's fun. And one day, and if people want to subscribe to it, they can just go to michaellevinwrites@gmail.com and they can subscribe for free. So um, one day, one of my clients called and she said, "Oh, your newsletter was really good today. It was really well written." And I thought, what was different today from, I mean, I think they were all good. So I looked at the way it had been. For whatever reason, the editing function made it so that it was only one sentence per paragraph. So it was very bite-sized. And she really liked it. So now I do everything, I do all of my newsletters one sentence per paragraph, because that reflects where the attention span is. And you have to get to the point. And also today, shorter books are better than longer books. You can do a book that's 50 pages. You can do a book that's 100 pages. This would have been unthinkable, because in the past, biggest book won. Whoever wrote the biggest book, 1,000 pages, 800 pages, oh, that person's the authority. Today, it's say what you need to say and get off the stage. So if you can get your message, let's put it this way: if you're trying to sell people on an idea or a service or a way of thinking about things, if you cannot close them on, get them to accept that idea in 100 pages, you're not going to get them in 200 pages. So at the Apollo Theater in New York, the expression is "be good or be gone." In books today, it's "be good and be gone." Say what you need to say and get off the stage.
Does the lifespan of a book, is that shorter today and than it was 20 years ago, you think?
Yeah, people want things that are clearly current. I like to say that today, uh, going forward, people are going to judge books either they're BC or AD. And BC is before Corona and AD is after Donald. So, so people are going to see if a book doesn't talk about, if it's a business book and it doesn't talk about selling in the pandemic or selling it to how the world has changed because of the pandemic, everybody's at home, they're buying from home, then people can say, oh, this book is useless, it's out of date.
Yeah.
And similarly, if it's a book about family or health or anything like that, and there's no references to what's gone on in the last year, people will say this book has no relevance. Even if 99% of the material in the book is still useful, it's going to look like it's out of date. So it's really important to constantly update your material. And it's so easy to do a second edition. You just make a few changes and then you put second edition on the cover. Everybody thinks, whoa, this book was very successful. Maybe, or maybe you just simply added new material to make it current. You have to stay current today as an author. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm curious about, sometimes us creators, we get in our own way. And I know, for example, for my podcast, I never wanted to do this virtual conversations because I believe in face-to-face meetings. So I did that for the first 170 episodes, and then this happened, and I said, what am I going to do? Am I going to quit, or am I going to pivot? I choose to pivot, and not thinking about everything has to be perfect. I don't have to be in a perfect studio, and my guest audio doesn't have to be at the highest level. And that has opened so many doors for me, because now I get to meet people from Boston like yourself, from Australia, from Venezuela, and it opened a lot of doors. What are the best tips you can tell creators that are blocking themselves from actually creating?
Oh wow. Well, it's so funny. I mean, I'm not in the studio. I'm in the basement. I'm sitting at my son's desk.
Yeah.
This is his desk. You can see the gym equipment over
I
there.
love it.
There's my desk, and there's the food because my wife went to Costco.
Yeah.
So it's like don't let the fancy clothes fool you. It's just, it's just how the world is today. It's people have a Zoom shirt, they keep it by their chair, and they have to put a business. They put the Zoom
Yeah.
shirt on. Meanwhile, do they have pants on? Here are my pants. I want
Yeah.
you to know I'm wearing pants. So
Honestly, I was drinking my coffee shirtless before like 7:55. I was like, oh, I gotta find a shirt now, and this is my Zoom shirt today.
so that's how the world is. When you talk about being blocked, and this is a really important topic, and this is something that I teach. I have an online writing course,
Yeah,
and one of the things that I start off teaching, or when I taught at UCLA or New York University, or in seminars or whatever around the country, around the world, I always start with writer's block, because a lot of people think they're blocked and they're not. And I'm going to solve writer's block in 45 seconds. Is that okay?
I love that.
I'm going to. Okay, so it's very simple. Your brain has two hemispheres. It has a left hemisphere, which is the organizing half, and there's a right hemisphere, which is the creative half. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that when most people sit down to write, they just think, all I have to do, if I'm any good, is I can just sit down, I'm going to start typing, and it's going to be brilliant, and everybody's going to love what I write. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to shunt back and forth between the organizing and creating sides of their brain over and over and again. The brain does not work that way. It doesn't like to shunt back and forth, organize, create, organize, create. So instead, if you just spend a little bit of time organizing what you're going to write and use your left brain, think through, okay, these are the points I want to make. These are the issues I want to discuss. This is the story I want to tell. These are the characters. Here's something about the plot. Just do that first. And then you go over and then you start the creative side. Your brain's going to be happy because it's not shunting back and forth. Anytime you do something to your body that it doesn't like, it sends a pain message. You work out too much at the gym, your elbow hurts or whatever. And it's saying stop. So when your brain sends itself a pain message, people think, oh, I'm blocked, because every time I try to write, I get that same pain. I must be. Now, being blocked for a writer is actually great because you can go to a bar and you can go up to somebody who's attractive and you can say, I'm a writer, but I'm blocked. And they'll be like, oh, let me take you home. So it's easier for a writer to like meet people and to like hook up if he or she is blocked than not.
Is
But the
that
thing
what you did back in the days, Michael?
I know I was the pilot, but but I had a Saturn in my gut, girls. It's unbelievable. So I don't know. That was then. Today, nothing. But I'm being very silly. But the serious thing is that if you try to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the two sides of your brain will send you a pain message, stop it, and people interpret that as I must be blocked. And the reality is, all your brain is saying, organize, then create, and you'll never have writer's block or any kind of artistic block again as long as you live. You can still go to the bar and tell them you're blocked. I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but that's it's your little secret that you're churning out tons of work. So you don't have to tell them that.
It's funny because that's when I wrote my books. That's exactly how I did. I had everything outlined, and I knew exactly what subject I was going to write, and I wrote every morning between 6 to 8 in the morning, and usually I got 2 to 3 pages in that time. Uh, and I didn't even analyze my writing. I just wrote, and then at another time I analyzed it to not stop myself, and that worked very good. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. For people out there now, I know you're helping people writing books and create their own book and write their book. So if there's someone here listening that have that dream, that urge, they're a businessman or woman, they're an athlete, they want to start doing more lectures and getting more business, or just put their message out there in a book. What's the first step to kind of even realize that this is something you want to do?
Sure. The first thing I want to say is that you absolutely can do it, that it's possible, and you shouldn't feel otherwise. I didn't think I could run marathons. I went to the bookstore to look for a book on the subject, and there was one called Marathon. You Can Do It. I said, that's the book I want. So I just want to tell you, you can do it. Then the question is how. Is it okay if I mention a course
Of
that I have
course,
online that
yeah,
people can look at?
of course. We're gonna
Oh,
share the
thank you.
link as well, so people can get in touch. And if they're gonna do it, they might as well work with the best, right?
Thank you very much. That's nice of you. It's nice of you to say. I put up a course this summer. It's one of the things I did with my pandemic time. I put up an online course, 6.5 hours of material for anybody who wants to be a thought leader, for a business person, an athlete, anybody who wants to be able to go out and speak or get clients. It says my connection is unstable. Can you hear me okay? Can you
Yeah,
still hear me?
if we can start one more time. You put out a course and then it was breaking up a
Sure.
little bit.
So this summer I put up an online course on writing. It's 6.5 hours of video,
Yeah.
and it's everything that you need to know about how to organize, write, or have written for you, and then publish, market, and monetize a book. Getting the book done is only half the battle. Then the question becomes, what do I do with it? How do I attain bestseller status? How do I get great blurbs, those little lines that people write that are on the back of the book? How do I get it published without being ripped off? How do I choose vendors to work with for the marketing? How can I get distributed by Simon and Schuster into bookstores? How can I get into airport bookstores? So I lay out everything in this course. Anybody who wants to write a book can read it, but it's really for business people who want to monetize their knowledge base and their experience and create mailbox money. It's written for anybody who is serious about wanting to teach, and then to teach people what they know, in order that people will hire them as a financial advisor, or as a as an athletic coach, or whatever you are. So people should go to successful-author.com, and successful with a little mini dash, a little hyphen, successful-author.com. And at the checkout, for your viewers, if they use the word write, WRITE, all caps, they'll get $50 off the course as a courtesy to your
Thank you.
viewers, to people in your tribe. Sure. So
We
that's what I
appreciate
would
that.
say. And if you want to talk to me about, if you want me to write the book, or then my website, my writing company is michaellevinwrites.com. So it's called the Michael Levin Writing Company. So you can take a look at that if you want to bring me in as a ghostwriter. And those are the ways I can be useful. And if if you've got a question or something, just drop me an email. It's michaellevinwrites@gmail, and I'll answer the question, and I'll get back
Awesome.
to you, and I'll tell you what I think. So I'll be delighted to do that. So those are the ways they can find me.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And as far as uh, I remember when I got talked to my first publisher, they told me like this: having a book is the best business card out there. Do you agree
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Abraham, who is my mentor, says that a business leader, a CEO, an entrepreneur, a professional needs a book the way everybody else in the organization needs a business card. Because the thing is that everybody has a website, everybody's websites look exactly the same. Most people, you could switch out your website and your top competitor's website, and neither of you would notice for months, and your clients wouldn't notice. So they just look generic. I mean, they're all beautiful and they're all the same. And people have white papers up on their site. Nobody reads white papers. But if on your website, there you are on the cover of your own book, people are like, whoa, this guy's an author, she's an author. And it just transforms the way they perceive you from the start. It changes everything. When you have a book, people want you to speak. It's very hard to get speaking without a book. When you have a book, you shorten the sales cycle because people want to get on your schedule instead of you trying to get on theirs. When you have a book, the person you're selling to can use the book to sell the co-decision makers. If it's a financial advisor, the prospect has to sell his or her spouse on you. Like if I tell my wife I found the guy, she's like, oh yeah, like the last time you found the guy. But if I say I found the guy and here's his book, she reads it, go, okay, this guy looks good. Or if it's in a corporate setting, you give 6 or 8 books to the person you're talking to. They give them to everybody who are co-decision makers, and all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, this person's good. So I mean, the power of I always say magic happens when you we talked about that at the beginning. Books are magic. Magic happens when you do a book. You can never predict where the magic is going to come from, but it's going to come. So I'm a big believer in the magic of books.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And writing books have changed my life and leveraged my life in many ways. And uh, heart to heart, Michael, I'm curious, are you still in love with writing the same way you was as a kid, and or how has that love evolved?
It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that question. The short answer is I love it every bit as much as I did then. And I thank God every day that I get to get up and do the thing that I love the most. I'm around books all day long. I'm around people. I'm planning books with people. I'm talking about books. I'm interviewing people for their books. I'm reading chapters of books that we've written, and I'm and I've still continued to work on my own projects. I have a band. I sing. I write songs now. I've been writing songs for a while, and I put a phenomenal band. People can go to meetthenewcomers.com. They can hear my band, and writing songs is really different from books because it's so miniaturized. But the
Yeah.
short of it is that I love the act of writing a good sentence today, and I have confidence in myself that I didn't have when I was brand new. And to me, it is a joyous act. It's an absolute joyous act, and I get the same sort of exhilaration that I do from skiing, or from intimacy. Let's put it that way. That's how much I love writing. And if you love what you do that much, you're a lucky person.
Yeah, you are. I'm curious, which are the book you wish you wrote?
The Bible, because the sales have been very good. Uh, I can't answer that yet because I don't know. If you ask me in college, what do you want to do with your life? Why are you in college? I'd say I'm pre-novelist. I'd say I'm here to learn how to write a book that if I read it today, I wouldn't understand it. So that's what I'm always trying to do. I'm always trying to learn more about the world and understand more so that I'm able to write something today that I didn't understand, I couldn't have understood when I was 18. And so I don't know what I don't know. And I don't know what I'm going to learn, say, in the next year. So I don't know what's going to be in that book that I haven't written yet. But the short of it is that once I find out, I'll write that book and I'll put it out.
And how much do you write on your own projects every week?
Um, that's a great question. It varies. I'd say about 20% of my professional time is on my own projects.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm working on a one-man show. It's going to be here in Boston. It's called The Mom Show. It's a tribute to my mother. I wrote a manuscript and a friend read it and said, "This is a one-man show." I said, "You're right." So I've been turning it into. So it's going into rehearsals in 2 weeks, and then when the pandemic lifts here in Boston, the governor says you can have people in the theaters. It's at the Huntington Theater. We'll be one of the first shows that opens in Boston
Oh,
when the
wow.
pandemic ends. So I'm putting a lot of time into that, putting a lot of time into my songs right now. I I I just find a lot of joy in expressing a lot of outlets, and that's really fun. I get to go to. Yesterday, I went to the Museum of Fine Arts. They had me come in because says it's unsafe. But yesterday, I went to the Museum of Fine Arts because I do a lot of journalism about the arts. So I got to see the new Basquiat exhibition and walk around the museum, and I mean, I love that stuff. So I woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't get back to sleep for a minute. So I just thought I'm going to start writing the Basquiat piece. So I'm laying there in bed composing an article, and to me, it never stops. It just never stops. The joy of self-expression. I was a very shy kid. I'm an introverted person who learned how to stick his hand out. Hey, how are you? But the thing is that communication. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings or anything when I was much younger, and now I have the ability to communicate ideas and thoughts and dreams for myself, for other people. whether I'm doing it in the theater piece, in the songs, in my own books. I'll never stop. My wife said, "What's your retirement plan?" And I said, "It's you prying the pen out of my cold dead hand. There's no retirement when you love what you do. Why would you stop? That would be
Yeah,
crazy." So I'll keep on going for as long as I possibly can.
I love that, Michael. And I really appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go. I just have one final question, and that is for people that are still here watching and listening. Thank you guys. What is the first step they can do to get a little bit closer on their dream right now?
Well, first, Peter, I just want to say thank you for having me because your questions have been fascinating, and it's just a pleasure to get to know you. And I
Thank you.
want to thank anyone who's sat through an hour of listening to me, which is more than my wife or kids could dream of doing. So express my not just my gratitude, but my shock, my outright shock that you've done that. But I think the first thing you can do is just simply commit. Just say this is going to happen. Write it down. I was told to print out goals and laminate them, carry them in my wallet. That sounds cheesy, but I do it. So what I would say is write down, I'm going to do this. Write down the day you're going to finish it. You don't have to tell anybody. Just tell yourself. And then Tony Robbins says, never leave the scene of a decision without taking an action. Never leave the scene of a decision without taking an action. So if it's a book that you're going to write the first sentence right now. If it's a song, write the first couple of words of the lyrics or the first piece of the music. Whatever it is, commit and do the tiniest bit. And then, as you said, and that's what I teach, just do a little bit every day. Momentum is more important than talent. If you have momentum, talent will find you. The quality will get there. But the most important thing you can do is do a little bit every day and never give up. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. That's my thought for the day.
Thank you so much, Michael Levin. We're going to share the links. You can just press them if you want to learn more about his work and have that book in you and need some help. Uh, I really appreciate you guys that you're here with us today, that you're taking your life seriously. We have more than 200 conversations now. Check it out at ilovesuccess.co. I even give away a couple of free chapters of my book. I mean, I want you to be happy. I want you to be successful and to have that dream you're working on and make those dreams goals and make them tangible and have something to wake up for every day, just like me and Michael have, because it truly is an amazing feeling. And we want you to have that as well. The only thing I would ask you for is if you enjoy this conversation, please share it with somebody. Give us a comment, give us a review so more people can find us, because that's why we do this. Otherwise, it's just a conversation with the two guys. And now we actually want to share it with the world. So thank you, everybody. And thanks again, Michael. And see you guys next week.